The energy situation is biting, propelling us to take a look at other sources of energy available to Nigerians. But what do you know about the energy transition plan? Well, former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo launched Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan (ETP) on August 24, 2022, establishing the country's strategy to reach a net zero emissions energy. Nigeria had actually in the year 2021 committed to achieving net zero emissions by the year 2060. It is the clean energy edition of the policy with Leah. And don't forget, we have our complimentary segment Simplify This and Markets. The Policy with Leah is streaming on YouTube at Saban Media Services. We begin the business of the day with a look at the trend table.
World Bank Managing Director of Operations Anna Jede this week was in Nigeria on a 2-day visit. Ms. Jede's first visit to Nigeria as Managing Director of Operations was to further the World Bank's engagement with Nigeria on critical aspects of the country's development agenda, including macroeconomic and fiscal policy, energy access, digital infrastructure, and skills. She participated in a meeting of Western and Central African Ministers of Finance co-hosted by the government of Nigeria and the World Bank, where she discussed the ambitious regional development priorities and how additional International Development Association (IDA) resources can further support countries to leap forward and attain sustainable growth, jobs, and development. Anna Jede held bilateral meetings with both fiscal and monetary authorities, as well as private sector leaders in the energy and digital sectors. The International Finance Corporation (IFC) investment portfolio in Nigeria is the second largest in Africa and stands at $2 billion. The Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) said it has uncovered invalid foreign overdue claims totaling $2.4 billion, which have pressured the naira for long and impacted the currency market. Governor of the Central Bank Leah Katung-Babatunde said the discovery was made after an audit by the consultant that the central bank engaged brought several shady deals to light. $2.4 billion is the amount Mr. Katung-Babatunde said had no business being in the $7 billion Forex wait list they inherited. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission (FCCP) said it is concerned over the increasing violation of its limited interim regulatory registration framework and guidelines by digital lenders, commonly known as loan apps. As a result, the Commission said it will intensify enforcement efforts to ensure digital lenders comply with regulations. FCCPC, in a statement signed by the Acting Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer Dr. Adamu Abdullahi, highlighted a surge in infractions as more Nigerians engage with various loan apps. The Commission, he noted, acknowledged a rise in defaults, possibly triggering harassment and defamation tactics by lenders, but emphasized that violating regulation through unethical debt recovery methods is unacceptable. Adamu Abdullahi said the FCCPC plans to engage approved loan apps to establish a more robust compliance framework, additional requirements where applicable, and mechanisms for addressing blacklisted apps. The federal government of Nigeria, through the Debt Management Office, has offered for subscription the 2-year and 3-year savings bond for the month of February 2024. The offer, which opened Monday, 5th February 2024, will end this Friday, 9th February 2024, and settlement date is February 14th, 2024. Coupon payment dates are May 14th, August 14th, November 14th, and February 14th. The 2-year savings bond due February 14, 2026 is at 12.751%, while the 3-year federal government saving bond due February 14, 2027 is at a 13.751% interest rate.
As I mentioned earlier, our policy focus this morning is on Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, ETP. And here's that conversation with Professor Abubakar Sani Sambo. Professor Abubakar Sani Sambo is the former Director General of the Energy Commission of Nigeria and is currently holding several global and local responsibilities, including a visiting professor at the Cambridge University. He's just also been selected as the president-elect of the Nigerian Academy of Science, and because power is presently an issue in Nigeria, of course, of national interest, Professor will be speaking on issues around energy transition and net zero emissions. You're welcome, Professor, to the program.
Thank you.
How is NEPA treating you, sir?
Well, NEPA, or as you say, the distribution company. Right now we're in Abuja, so the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company is the one. Is not doing that good because the load shedding is too much. The hours when there is no light, as they call it, load shedding, is unnecessarily too much, especially for most of us that have prepaid meters. One would expect that the AEDC will ensure that the outage periods are minimum, because when the outage is there, they lose money because you have already paid. It's when they give electricity, their money is given credited to them. So the situation is very bad. And this is because at the end of the day, the electricity available for the total number of Nigerians is too little. As we are talking now, the best is about 5,000 megawatts for the whole country, with a population of about 200, almost 230 million. That works out to be an average annual electricity consumption per capita, slightly less than 200 kilowatt hour for each Nigerian. The sub-Saharan African average is about 500. The world average is about 3,600. You can see Nigeria is very far down the ladder of electricity provision in terms of the country.
With Nigeria signing into the energy transition plan and taking major steps in the last couple of years, I would want to know from you really, where is Nigeria presently in the energy transition plan, and can the net zero target of 2060 be achieved?
First and foremost, to me, the energy transition plan should be taken as another impetus, another way to improve the electricity situation. So it's a welcome development, because at the end of the day, it will lead to enhanced electricity supply. Now, as it is now, we have got the energy transition plan approved. We have the Energy Transition Office established, and the Climate Change Council, if you recall, was inaugurated 2022, towards the end of 2022. So this, to me, is a clear indication that Nigeria stands to meet the net zero pledge it made to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that climate change conference that took place in Glasgow in 2021. It is achievable. However, it can only be achieved if the major challenges, or if you like, can say barriers, are removed.
What do you see as major barriers to achieving this? From your expert eye, what do you see?
Well, there are quite a number, but the major ones, first and foremost, is the issue of political will at the highest level. The energy transition document is a document that is policy-oriented, and you don't just make policy and leave it like that. It has to be translated into a roadmap, implementable roadmap with set targets. And the political will require regular meetings with the players in the sector to ensure that all the difficulties are put aside. This is what transformational leaders do to ensure they meet results. The second issue that I see is that you see the energy transition of Nigeria is mainly to do with enhanced gas utilization, because gas is the cleanest of the fossil fuels, gas utilization for power generation, for transportation, and also for industrial utilization. Then secondly, the ETP is also hinged on enhanced use of renewable energy. Renewable energy, solar, wind, biomass for electricity generation, as well as electric vehicles. Why electric vehicles is brought here? The sustainable way to use electric vehicles is when the batteries are charged from solar installations. So this area of the gas utilization, renewable energy utilization, electric vehicles, the manpower requirements to drive them is lacking. It's not adequate. It's not enough. It's inadequate. So we need to do something about manpower. Luckily for us, since the energy transition was launched 2021, for the pledge to become effective 2060, we are talking of 39 years. So if we are very good in implementing plans, this national manpower plan to meet this, along with others, can be attained within the next 15, 20 years. So by long before the pledge date of 2060, we will be moving in the right direction. The third area is massive funding required to acquire the technologies. We need massive funds to acquire the technologies that will, by their utilization, ensure the carbon emissions are minimized.
Talking of funding, $1.9 trillion is what Nigeria would need to spend over time to achieve this. And for a lot of us, we'll say, where would that money be coming from? And really, how do we get to achieve this?
Is for the government to do some of the technological installations that are needed as pilots. Once they do them, then they can entice the organized private sector to come in. It's the private sector that needs to be motivated, and governments that are up and coming will always be able to craft the policy positions to attract the private sector. So private sector have to lead in this endeavor.
If I may come in here, talking about the carbon removal solutions, how can they be harnessed now for results, considering the fact that a lot of fundamentals have changed from that time till now?
The preferred approach is you don't even use the systems that will produce carbon emissions, and that is renewable energy system. However, as a major oil producing country, that is not possible. Indeed, our energy transition plan is called just energy transition because we use gas as transition fuel. And the way things are going now, there are several areas of the country. Of course, there's the Upper Benue Trough, Bauchi Gombe, there's Lake Chad Basin, there's Bida Basin, there's Ilumidin Basin between Sokoto and Niger Republic. They are pointing towards enhanced availability of gas, in addition to the gas in the inland basins around Enugu Basin, Niger Delta Basin, Edo Basin, Ondo Basin. There are substantial quantities of gas. So the footprints of gas utilization is about 40% that of coal. So that's why we are using gas as a transition fuel. To continue using gas, then we need to be serious about carbon capture and sequestration technologies, like Saudi Arabia is doing beautifully. And that's why they've moved very fast to entrench what is called circular carbon economy, that will essentially involve capturing the carbon dioxide. The major installations that are producing gas for the motorcycles, the cars, the trucks, and buses and trains, that will be using gas in different parts of the country. The best solution, the best system is to set up plantations of quick-growing tree species in different parts of the country. Trees are automatic sinks for carbon dioxide. They use carbon dioxide in photosynthesis. We can get the botanists, the agric people, the foresters, along with the engineers and the plant operators to say, this plant, the carbon dioxide tonnage is so much. The motorcycles, the cars, trucks in Nigeria estimated to produce so much. Then we have plantations to absorb even a little bit more. If we do it well, even beyond 2060, we will be able to continue using oil and gas. Because what Nigeria signed at the United Nations is not absolute zero carbon emission, it's net zero. Net means you can emit and absorb. Even the investors, if they don't see us putting up these carbon capture techniques and forestry plantation, they will not fund new gas development projects.
You say it's going to bring about jobs. How will these jobs be coming? And then secondly, communicating these policies, are Nigerians being carried along in the whole of it?
Actually, the energy transition plan of Nigeria was thinking of 100 million jobs, especially for the renewable energy sector. But when you add these plantations of quick-growing tree species, and I will put a corollary there, that because of our cousins in the villages rely on fuel wood for feed, so while we plant plantations, we plant also smaller quantities of quick-growing tree species that can be harvested for fuel wood supplies. If we do it very well, it could double the number of jobs. So as we move towards 2060, then it will take care of our energy needs in all aspects. Now, back to policy, I want to say, at the moment, the way I see it, we have the Energy Transition Plan, we have the Climate Change Act. Climate change, both of them were approved 2021. Then last year, in June, President Tinubu signed into law Electricity Act 2023. That Electricity Act 2023 is a game changer for renewable energy. It promotes renewable energy significantly, and it allows states to generate electricity and set up their electricity markets. I want to say, whenever you have major development, like when the Electricity Act was approved, when the Energy Transition Plan was rolled out by the former Vice President Sumbajo in August 2021, and when the Climate Change Council was inaugurated 2022, there are a lot of publicity, a lot of communications to the general public. Then you have very little communications on a regular basis. So to me, I would say the engagement of the public to know what is happening in this energy transition and climate change is not adequate. See, I used to see several agencies of government having weekly programs on television. I think energy transition plan should move in that direction.
We've seen that things have changed. A lot of things have come up. What should Nigeria do differently this time around to achieve the target of zero net emission?
Sure that the components of renewable energy systems, the solar panels, the deep cycle batteries, the inverters, the charge controllers are produced in Nigeria. Luckily for us, the African Development Bank, the president recommended Nigeria to be serious in this regard. And the president mentioned to the retreat, it was reported in the papers, that the bank has provision for African groups that want to start manufacturing components of solar, wind, and other renewable energy systems within the country for the bank to fund. One of the major effective ways to address the carbon emission in the transport sector is through electric vehicles. Electric vehicles have no carbon dioxide emissions at all. And the vehicles we are seeing now, they are assembly brought what they call CKD, completely knocked down. You just assemble it. The input, the components that are sourced in Nigeria is very little. Now, any company wanting to bring electric vehicles is not just to come to assemble, but to start with manufacturing certain percentage, maybe 20%. Then after some time it will move 40, 60, 70, like some countries are doing. Morocco is achieving very high percentage. I think that's what we should aim, between 75 and 80% local content of our vehicle. Then one area that we need also to go very seriously to help this endeavor is to embrace hydrogen. Once you get it into what is called fuel cell. Fuel cells are similar to batteries. You have electricity and water released, no carbon dioxide emission. So hydrogen is an area we should also go heavily. At the moment, it looks costly, it looks expensive, but once the technology settles down, like everything else, example is the solar panels. Before, 10 years, 20 years ago, we were called they are too expensive. Now with intense adoption of it all over the world, it is now in terms of levelized cost of energy production comparison. Lifetime costs is cheaper than gas electricity. So the same thing, if hydrogen is adopted as the Western world is moving, and some developing countries in Africa, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, they are moving into hydrogen very seriously. And I think Nigeria should also join them.
So I must sincerely thank you, Professor, for making our time for this conversation. We wish you a beautiful day.
Thank you.
My name is Aldo Mekori.
Keep watching the policy with Leah.
It aims to provide policymakers an opportunity to explain their policies in a way that members of the public affected by those policies can understand and engage with those policies.
Keep watching the policy with Leah.
The World Bank says global food prices will continue to rise, and it went ahead to project a severe food shortage in 7 states across Nigeria. But before we delve into the market space, do you know what liquidity ratios are and how they are affecting you? We'll simplify that for you in just a bit, and afterwards we go to the markets. For more on rates from markets across the country, do well to log into our sister website, www.marketnigertv.com. Don't forget, we have this episode and the previous ones on YouTube on our channel, Saban Media Services, of course. And do well to follow us on our various social media platforms. Don't forget as well to communicate with us. Send in your questions, your comments, suggestions, and observations, because we value them. Until we return, your way again same time next week. Do well to keep safe out there. And the task of building Nigeria lies on each and every one of us. And so we roll our sleeves as we get to work. We cheer the Super Eagles this weekend to glory at the AFCON finals, AFCON 2023. God bless Nigeria.